Hey guys, it's time for Lawn Theory. So crack open a cold one and settle in and let's get to it. On Lawn Theory, we're going to keep up with industry trends and hear from professionals who built businesses from the ground up. New episodes drop every Sunday, and you'll have new growth opportunities for your business every Monday. Now, let's get into today's episode.
I'm Sherry Shiver, Head of Marketing here at Lawn Buddy, and I am joined today by our CEO, Stephen Werner. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how Lawn Buddy was started, the challenges faced along the way, and the ins and outs of starting a business. So thank you for joining us, Stephen. Let's get started. Let's start with the basics. Tell us the story about Lawn Buddy.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for driving all the way from Colorado to Wichita just to record this podcast.
Oh, anytime. Well, not anytime. Don't hold me to that.
So I think really to tell the story of Lawn Buddy, we should really go back and do a little bit of a origin story. I think the great thing about Lawn Buddy is that we're all a collection of individuals who are more like our customers than they probably think we are. And so I was born in a little town called Kemmer, Wyoming, on a ranch out there. And as soon as I graduated high school, I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And I shipped off a week and a half, actually, after I graduated and bounced all over the place. I was a mechanic, but if there's any people who are in the military or Marines listening, you know that you do everything. You don't just do your MOS. But eventually I ended up getting out in 2013, and I realized, I didn't want to be stuck in the town, and I wanted to always elevate myself to another level, and I really wanted to pursue a management position. And so I ended up being very fortunate and blessed to get a job at a company called Crank Companies, where I was a capital project manager. So basically, this mine in Wyoming would give me a bunch of money to execute new structural projects or rehab existing structures, and I'd build a team around it, and I'd spend a bunch of the plant's money on getting it done. And it's where I first cut my teeth on OPM, which is other people's money, and getting really good at spending it efficiently and building a team. And on one of those projects, I met my wife, who's an electrical engineer, and she foolishly accepted going to lunch with me. And then fast forward, we got married, and we realized that, hey, we want to continue to advance ourselves. Let's look for other jobs in other areas and be a little bit resilient to where we follow opportunity and instead of settling for what was afforded to us in that moment. And she beat me, and she got a job offer for Koch Industries out here in Wichita, Kansas. And so I said, I have no idea where Wichita is, but we'll go. And moved out here. And this is where kind of a common theme, I think, through my story and our story as Lawn Buddy really comes through, and that's resiliency. So when I came out here, I foolishly thought, hey, I'll be able to find another job because I was very successful at this last one. I was in the military. I'll be able to find a job. And I was wrong. And Mike Tyson has a great quote that says, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. And Wichita was my Mike Tyson. He punched me in the face. And I started talking weird for a short period of time. But essentially, when I moved out here, every construction project management company or engineering firm I reached out to, they all wanted someone with a degree, and I didn't have a degree. I don't have a fancy diploma in entrepreneurship or business or management. I came from the School of Hard Knocks in the military and really cut my teeth on like firsthand knowledge on how to develop leaders and skill sets, and then transfer that into the structural engineering or project management role. And then when I came here, it didn't matter. And it was tough. And so I don't tell a lot of people this story, but because you drove all the way down here from Colorado, I'll tell you this story.
I'm so flattered.
So I would still work remotely for that mine. So I'd fly back every 2 weeks for projects, and then I'd stay there for 2 to 3 weeks to oversee them, and I'd fly back. And being recently married and moving to a new place, we cut that off really quick. And so then I was jobless. So I remember we were in this apartment that Koch was paying for until we found a house, and I had nothing to do. And so I started watching Ellen a lot. And so I remember my wife came home one day, and she had a good conversation with me because she said, you're sitting here watching Ellen. What are you doing? You're smart, you're capable, you can figure something out. And I said, okay, just one time Justin Bieber's about to talk. That was a joke. But from that, I realized like, okay, we got to figure something out. And so I decided if the piece of paper is so important, I'll go ahead and I'll go back to school and I'll see about getting my degree. And at the same time, we're a young family who just moved here. I have to do something to bring money in. And so the one thing I was still qualified for was armed security because I had security clearances still from my time in the military, and I was obviously proficient with the firearm. And so I worked armed security for Spirit Aerosystems in their federal bay for quite a while, and then ultimately ended up getting a job in firearm sales here in Wichita, Kansas, and was going to school full time. And this is kind of where Lawn Buddy came into play when we were talking about resilience. So I'm going to school full time, I'm working full time, and we had just bought a house. And here in the Midwest, the grass grows like crazy. Being from Colorado, you probably know that like you can get by with not mowing every 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, we mow like once a month.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
There's no, it doesn't grow.
Yep. And it was the same in Wyoming. It was it was dry and humid, so you could get by with not mowing every week. And kind of that another Mike Tyson moment was I'm overwhelmed. We're going to school, doing all these things, and if you let the grass go for a week here, you might as well be like diving into Jumanji because there's a jungle with a lot of hidden creatures and death traps hiding in the grass.
Yeah, not to mention the HOA is going to come knocking on your door if
that's true.
Things get out of hand.
And I'm adamantly against HOAs. So from that, I was studying entrepreneurship. I had just finished working a full shift over the weekend, going into a Monday, studying entrepreneurship in the gig economy. So at that time, it was Uber and Lyft and their business model and how they came to fruition. And I pull up into my driveway just exhausted, and the grass was completely overgrown. And in my previous experiences, I've been going to Craigslist to find people, but no one would.
That's safe.
It is safe. No one would answer the phone. And if I get someone to come out, they were like 2 weeks late constantly. And so then there would be an upcharge because they'd get out and my grass was even more overgrown. And then for payment, I'd literally have to leave cash or a check in the doormat or in the screen door. And it would sit there for a week to 2 weeks until the business owner had time on his route to come and pick it up because the employees weren't allowed to pick it up.
Right.
And so as I was sitting in the driveway, remembering all of these negative experiences, I said, man, wouldn't it be nice if there was an app or a website where I could connect homeowners to business owners and just bridge that gap between the communication issues and the payment issues. And I did some research, and at that time there was no existing piece of technology like what I was kind of thinking of. And I said, you know what, this would be a great business idea. And luckily, I have to submit business ideas for my college work. So let's go inside and do, at that time, business model canvases were really big, which if you don't know what a business model canvas is, for those of you who are listening, it's basically like a rough structure on like proving your business's viability, like what you need to make sure it was good. So my wife and I did that. I didn't mow the lawn, but we did the business model canvas, and I entered it in for homework at school, and then ultimately got nominated to go into a business competition for it, and that was the birth of Lawn Buddy in its purest form. Fast forward to almost our co-founders. It is actually today, June 20th, is Philip Matthews' anniversary of being with the company. Because June 20th of 2016, I convinced him to go on this crazy ride with us.
Did it take a lot of convincing?
I was bidding it out first, and so I was going about it in like what I knew. I did a lot of RFPs of like find the people to build the technology for you and see where it goes. And a lot of people were like trying to swindle me into like make me pay an absorbent amount for it and think that I was not educated enough to know the true value of technology.
Right.
And when I met Phil, it was different. He didn't do that. And we worked really well together. And eventually we both came to the conclusion like, hey, we enjoy being around each other. Let's take this bromance to another step and let's go into business together. And so that 2016, we started building the technology for Lawn Buddy and connecting that. A lot of people compared us to an on-demand or Uber of. At that time, Simone Biles was at the Olympics, and someone compared her to Michael Phelps, and she said, I'm not the next Michael Phelps, I'm the first Simone Biles. And so that's what I'd always say in press releases, is we're not the next Uber for lawn care, we're the first Lawn Buddy. Because we wanted to be different. It was just hard because you have to educate the public on why are you different.
Exactly.
And so that was the first kind of jettison into Lawn Buddy. But what we really found back to the resilience part is Phil and I had never done this before. We weren't business owners in the lawn and landscape industry, but we didn't want to accept no for an answer. Like impossible to me just means you didn't try hard enough. And so how can we be resilient enough to push forward, find out the real needs of the industry, and build a dope product? And I am bringing dope back slowly but surely. We're going to work that back into 2022. And so what we started realizing as we were bringing business owners on and we were bridging the gap between communication with the business owner, homeowner, and solving for the payment piece is we found that these business owners are some of the hardest working men and women that you'll ever meet. And I learned this firsthand because when we had started, we didn't have enough lawn care companies on the platform. So I had to go out and do it. So I was out on the mower, I was out trimming and edging, I was doing the service, and I realized in those moments that I couldn't answer my phone because I'm busy doing manual labor, sweating my tuchus off in the Kansas heat. And it's tough. And then it's hard to remember all the services you did on that property because you're trying to knock as many of them out as possible. And the only thing that you have to keep track of it is your brain, or your brain housing group, as I call it, or a pen and paper if you were sophisticated. And so in those moments, I started realizing, we started realizing, the true benefit that we bring to these business owners isn't just in bridging that communication gap. It's we know their pain and we know their struggles because we're having to do it. Let's give all the tools that we were making for ourselves to manage the behemoth in the back end to the individual business owner, so that way they can significantly grow their company by taking out all of that extra legwork from a business management side and optimize it. Not take it completely away from them, because every business owner needs to be involved in their business, but how can we take them from working in their business to working on their business? And that's when Lawn Buddy Pro was born, is we wanted to take all those tools from scheduling to invoicing to bids to tracking their employees in real-time location, all that kind of mix of perfect ingredients, and help them optimize their business to the best of our abilities. And that is how Lawn Buddy was started and morphed into what it is today.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between working on your business and working in your business?
Yeah, so a perfect example of that would be, we had started the technology company, right? Mm-hmm. And I was mowing the lawns. And so I was out in the field doing the work. And so at the end of the day, I didn't have time to work on Lawn Buddy. Right. I was working in Lawn Buddy. Like I was physically performing the labor, and I couldn't do anything else. The same thing for business owners, whether it's in the lawn and landscaping industry or the trades industry, is it's really easy to get sucked in and do the work yourself because no one else will do it. But it's all about, I think life in general is about making time and systems to better yourself or better your company. And working in your business, you'll just plateau. You'll stay stagnant. And some people love that. Some people, they don't want any more customers. They are enjoying life. Mm-hmm. That's them. Let them live their life. Right. But if you want to get to that next level and constantly increasing your personal knowledge and your business's growth, working on your business is finding how can we put systems in place to where I can optimize that, whether it's maybe I'm hiring an employee to come in. And I know I said the dreaded employee word for the lawn and landscape industry. We all know that they churn 90% of their staff. But for that 10% that stays, how can you optimize their workload to where they can get more done? And how can you optimize your workload to where you can get more done and have more time to think strategically on, hey, maybe I'm in this zip code of Wichita. For instance, we're in 67202. The zip code right next to us is 67226. How can we break into that zip code and get more of a more concentrated route density and continue growing your business? And if you're working all day in the field, you can think about those ideas, but you're not taking action on them. And I think
that's the key, is taking action.
Mm-hmm. And it really breaks you free from working in your business to where you can start working on it.
What would you advise business owners who are making that transition from working in their business to working on their business? Where do they start? Where do they go once they mentally make that decision to make that shift?
Yeah, so then it all comes to putting systems in place, right? And so once you make that shift of, hey, I got to get out of working in my business and start working on it, Then it's systems where it comes to like, okay, are we going to hire employees or are we going to integrate with software, right? Shameless plug for Lawn Buddy, because it's
Right.
our podcast, is once you start fully implementing and not partially implementing, by that I mean you have a handful of customers that are in a software that you're using for customer management. You have a handful of customers that are in your automatic bill pay. You're essentially just creating double work until you fully implement. And I think the biggest problem with software and systems is that us as individuals, we have to hold ourselves accountable to know that most of the time it's user error.
Right.
Most of the time, if you're humble enough to really analyze and find out what the problem is, it's staring you in the mirror. And it's because you're not taking the time to fully implement into those systems, or just using exercise for an example, right? Every January, we all say, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to crush it. And then you get to June, and like for me, I go on Monday. That's my one day. Everything else, I'm just paying my fat tax.
Right.
But it's because I'm not putting systems in place, right? It's not a priority to me now, but I know it's going to hinder me in the long run. So for short-term pleasure, I'm willing to go through long-term pain, which it shouldn't be that. You should go through short-term pain to enjoy long-term pleasure.
Right.
And that's the same for your systems with software or your employee's handbook or manuals is if you don't suck it up and get the work done now, you'll always be procrastinating tomorrow.
Right.
And so I think that's my biggest piece of advice for business owners as they're working on transitioning is put in the work and the effort. It's going to suck.
Yeah, and it's going to take time.
Oh, yeah, it will take time. But most things that suck, especially when you start, you reap so much benefit, and then there's so much self-pride that goes along with that, too, because you accomplished it. You ran the race. You did the thing.
Right. What would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced when you made that transition from working in Lawn Buddy versus on Lawn Buddy?
Yeah, it was, if there's any Parks and Rec fans out there, there's a famous Ron Swanson quote that I really love, and he says, never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. And so that was a challenge for me as I was transitioning, is because I didn't want to delegate things. I wanted to have my hand in everything. Not that I didn't trust the people that were working on it, but I didn't feel like I was earning my keep if I was just like thinking about strategy. Right. It would probably be the same thing that you would experience with marketing, right? Yeah. You can have your hands in all the pots, but at the end of the day, are we pushing the needle forward for what we should do next month?
Exactly. And it's also, you feel like you're losing a sense of control when you're letting go of things and letting other people do them or handle them. And it's hard to make that transition, especially as a business owner. Your business is like your baby. And so it's hard sometimes to let someone take something off your plate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting. And so for me, that's where I fell into, is I wanted to earn my keep, so to speak. But at the end of the day, I was only hurting myself and the company because I wasn't fully entrusting and leveraging the employees and their talents like you should. And that was a huge challenge for me. And then also when it came to technology, this is going to be really ironic, right? The technology company, and you're saying that like one of your biggest hurdles was technology. But it's true, because as we were growing and we were putting more systems in place, we as humans fall into this weird like temporary fix category, to where you find a workaround and then your workaround becomes a habit because you do it for so long, and then you're not fully optimizing yourself, and then you almost get defensive if it's like challenged. Like for instance, we had an admin portal, and in that admin portal, for me to like log a call, I'd have to go to a separate website. And then I found a workaround to where I'd have two tabs open. I'd pull up a customer's phone number in our admin portal. I'd plug it into our CRM software, and then I would make the phone call. And for the longest time, it was just like, that's what we do. That's it. But we never stopped to like take a step back and think like, how can we fully and better put in systems to make that seamless? And that was through, software. How can we fully leverage the software to make it to where it is seamless? Like you can cut out that little minute 60-second task that you were doing, but in the long run, that 60-second task turns to be minutes, and minutes turns to hours, and hours turns to days. And then if you look in the long run of things, you waste a lot of time on a workaround where you could have just sucked it up and figured out a solution to make that more seamless.
Yeah. What would you say is just overall biggest piece of just blanket advice for business owners in general, especially people who are just getting started in their business?
Gotcha. Especially if they're getting started, I think I have two separate pieces of advice. One if you're just getting started, and one if you've been in it. If you're just getting started, my first piece of advice is to develop your systems now. Implement your systems now because you have the time to do it. I would say make those systems before you go out and get customers. Or if you have a few customers, stop getting more customers until you can get your systems in place. Because if you talk to a more veteran landscape business owner, they'll tell you as soon as your season starts and you get to the end of April, you're going to be consumed with customers, and you're not going to have time to set up those systems or refine those systems. That's my first piece of advice. And by systems, I don't just mean Lawn Buddy. I mean, like, if a customer calls you, are they calling your personal cell phone number, or are they calling a business line? Systems as far as if you plan on hiring employees, what's your strategy for that? Because we all say, oh, I'd love to, if I'm starting my business in April, I'd love to hire my first employee by July. But if you don't start thinking about where are you going to find that employee, how are you going to bring them on? Are they going to be a W-2 employee, or are they going to be a 1099 contractor? You're already behind. Because you get to July, you have 30 clients that need you to come out and mow, and you're thinking, I need to hire someone, but you don't even have the systems in place to know how to execute or to complete that task.
Right.
And so for the new folks, that's what I would say. Implement systems now. Think through your growth for at least 1 year. I would emphasize 3 years. Look at the next 3 years, project how you want your company to grow, and develop a plan. And that's a business model, right? You can do a business model canvas, you can do an actual business model, but it's a living document where you can benchmark yourself off of, here's my idea, here's my dream, here's what I need to do to meet those goals. Otherwise, it's an idea in your head, and ideas in your heads are easily dismissive. So if you get to July and I can't hire anyone because I'm too busy, well, you didn't hire anyone because you didn't have the plan to do it.
Right.
You had an idea to do it. And then for more established businesses, my advice would be find and or make time to revisit the advice for the beginning company.
Right.
And if you haven't thought through your business model or your plan on how you can grow, offer additional services, things of that nature, take a day. Take a day off, go to a library, and hammer it out. You don't need a week to figure out the rough MVP, right? The minimum viable product for how you should grow your business. Just take a day. Start implementing systems, and then from that day, make a plan is to, like, what are those small chunks that you're going to knock off to where in the next week to 2 weeks, you can be fully implemented, whether it's your software, whether it's your hiring strategy, whether it's your new fertilizer program that you want to offer customers. Is find time to pull yourself away so you can work on your business and not just in it. And don't give me the excuse that you're too busy, because we're all too busy. We all can make time. When the sun goes down, you're not mowing. So there is time. You just have to make it a priority. Right. And trust me, bush light is a priority for me most evenings. But I can also, you can't drink and drive, but you can drink and make a business model.
There you go.
It's more creative. That's the one thing everyone's going to hear is, Steven told me I could drink and make a plan. And you're absolutely right. You can do that.
There you go. That's all you need to do. Get some bush lights, sit down.
Or Modelo. Either those two spark the most creativity, at least in me. So.
You heard it here first. Yes. Drink some beer, make a business plan.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steven, for sharing everything about Lawn Buddy, how it was started, everything that you faced along the way. And hopefully this was really helpful and useful for our audience. I'm sure they're all getting ready to crack open a beer and get started on their business plans.
Yep. And well, before we go, I have a rapid fire question for you that you know nothing about. Are you ready?
I don't know.
You can do it. I believe in you. If you were to, from a marketing lens, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who don't know, we have the world's best marketing team here at Lawn Buddy. And they're very, very good at what they do. But from a marketing lens for a small business in the lawn and landscaping industry, what do you think is the most impactful thing they can do in terms of marketing to generate customers locally for their business?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think the most important thing is to make it easy for your customers to find you and contact you. There have been a lot of times where I am looking for a service, whether it's lawn or anything else, and I Google, lawn mowers near me or whatever it is I'm Googling, and I might find a business, but there's no phone number, there's no website, there's no reviews, it's just this person exists. And that's not useful to me. I can't call them. I can't look at their website to see if they're legitimate. There's no way for me to contact them. And so my biggest piece of advice is make it easy for people to find you. You can go on Google, set up your business on Google, put your phone number, put your email address, put your website if you have one, and make sure that you have a presence that's easily accessible to people. I think that's like step one. And I think that that principle of making it easy for your customers kind of in business in general is the most important thing. Like, make it easy for your customers to pay you. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a situation where I'm trying to pay someone and they're not making it easy for me to pay them. For those listening, you can probably hear my dog in the background.
She agrees with you.
She agrees with me. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening right now. So make it easy for people to find you, make it easy for people to pay you, make it easy for people to work with you, and you're going to get repeat customers.
Yeah. All right, last rapid fire question for you and the listeners.
Okay.
And this question really helps me. I'll try and do one of these every time you interview me for the podcast, but it helps me understand you as a human better as well as the listeners. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one duck-sized horse, or one horse-sized duck? So 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck.
Okay, so that I'm anti-violence.
But what if it was trying to take your dog?
If it was trying to take my dog, the mama bear is going to come out. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a tough question. You know what? I'm going to take 100 duck-sized horses. Is that it? Is that right? Because I just rode a horse for the first time this past weekend, and they're like 1,000 pounds. They're big.
Oh yeah.
And I don't want to go up against that. That's not for me. I'll take 100 horse-sized ducks. I think I could befriend them.
This is true.
I think I could befriend them.
Yeah.
That would be my strategy.
You just need some grain. Throw it out there and it all herd around. That's a great strategy. Yeah. So thank you for that. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments as well.
Yes, please tell us
what you would choose.
I think you got Missy riled up. She's like ready to fight 100 horse-sized or duck-sized horses.
She's ready to go. I think she actually sees them outside right now.
There we go.
Lawn Theory, the podcast for lawn care professionals, powered by Lawn Buddy.